In the year 2157, humanity had been aware of the vast galactic hegemony for just under a decade. Earth nations still struggled to unite under a single banner, but the presence of advanced alien civilizations accelerated global cooperation like nothing before. Most world leaders approached this first contact with careful diplomacy. Humans were technological infants compared to species that had mastered faster-than-light travel thousands of years ago. The hegemony, a coalition of the oldest and most powerful species in the known galaxy, viewed humans as primitive newcomers, barely worth acknowledging. They established an embassy on Luna, but insisted human representatives travel to their ships for most diplomatic exchanges. Their technology seemed almost magical to Earth scientists. Gravity manipulation, instantaneous communication across light years, and energy shields that defied physical laws as humans understood them. Despite the technological gap, relations remained workable if not warm. Trade agreements were formed. Though the hegemony clearly benefited more than Earth, human diplomats worked tirelessly to project strength despite their obvious disadvantage. Kim Ha-na was 16 when her mother became Earth's ambassador to the hegemony. Brilliant and curious, Ha-na had learned 3 alien languages in just 2 years, showing an aptitude that impressed even the aloof hegemony diplomats. She often accompanied her mother to meetings, serving unofficially as a cultural attaché. Many believed Ha-na represented the future of human-alien relations, the first generation to grow up knowing Earth wasn't alone in the universe. The diplomatic mission that changed everything was supposed to be routine. Ambassador Kim and her daughter traveled to the hegemony's regional diplomatic vessel orbiting Jupiter to discuss expanded trade routes. Security footage later recovered showed Ha-na separating from the main delegation, following one of the hegemony's junior diplomats who had offered to show her their ship's observatory deck. 23 minutes later, emergency alarms activated in the ship's beta section. When the human delegation reached the area, they found Ha-na collapsed on the deck, her skin blue, medical officers already declaring her beyond help. A tragic accident, the Hegemony Council representative explained with what humans interpreted as practiced indifference. The observation deck's atmospheric settings were calibrated for Centaurian physiology. The nitrogen-oxygen balance is toxic to human respiratory systems. She should not have been there unaccompanied. Earth demanded a full investigation. The ambassador, devastated but composed, insisted on bringing her daughter's body home personally. Back on Earth, an autopsy told a different story. This wasn't atmospheric poisoning, Dr. Lee told the emergency UN Security Council meeting 3 days later. His hands shook as he presented his findings. Ha-na's tissues show evidence of targeted biological agents that attack human cellular structures specifically. This was designed to kill humans and make it appear natural. The evidence was sent to the Hegemony Council with formal demands for an investigation into what was now being called an assassination. Their response was dismissive. "Your primitive medical science has led you to incorrect conclusions," their message stated. "We regret the emotional distress causing your species to make such unfounded accusations. The matter is closed." Behind closed doors, UN leaders received another message, a warning. A hegemony military attaché informed Earth's Security Council that similar accidents could befall other humans if Earth continued pressing the issue. The message was clear. Know your place in the galactic order. Publicly, Earth's leaders appeared to back down. Trade negotiations resumed. The official story remained that Ha-na's death was an unfortunate accident. But something had changed in humanity's approach to the stars. In a hidden facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, General Kang met with the world's top military and scientific minds. "They think we're primitive," he said, his voice steady despite the anger beneath. "They think they can kill our children and we'll accept it out of fear." He activated a hologram showing schematics that incorporated both human innovation and reverse-engineered alien technology. Technology the hegemony didn't know humans had managed to understand. "Project Nemesis has been theoretical until now," he continued. "Today we move to active development. They believe humans are weak because we value individual lives. They just proved they don't understand us at all." The scientists and military leaders looked at the rotating schematic of what would become Earth's first true warship. Not designed for exploration or diplomacy, designed to show the galaxy what happens when humanity is pushed too far. "We have 3 years before the ship is ready," General Kang said. 3 years to maintain the pretense of submission. 3 years to prepare for what comes after. As the meeting concluded, the general stood at the window overlooking the massive, underground construction bay. Workers were already moving equipment into place. On his desk sat a framed photo of Hana at her 16th birthday celebration, smiling with the innocent belief that the galaxy would be a place of wonder and opportunity. "They think killing one human girl was insignificant," he whispered to the empty room. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." For 3 long years, Earth maintained a carefully crafted mask of diplomatic submission. Representatives smiled, politely during hegemony meetings, accepted unfavorable trade terms, and never once mentioned Hana's name in official channels. But beneath this facade, humanity's greatest minds worked with single-minded purpose in hidden facilities scattered across the solar system. The main construction site for Project Nemesis lay beneath the lunar surface on the far side of the moon, shielded from both Earth and hegemony observation posts. Here, in vast caverns carved by boring machines, thousands of engineers and scientists lived and worked in complete secrecy. "Another 18-hour shift?" Li Jinwu asked his colleague as they rode the elevator down to level 7, where the ship's main propulsion system was being assembled. "My son's birthday is next week," Dr. Song replied, dark circles under her eyes. "I want to finish testing the gravitational displacement array before I head back to Earth. The sooner we complete this ship, the sooner all our children will be safe." That sentiment echoed throughout the facility. Few working on the project knew Hana personally, but her image had become a symbol, a young girl who represented Earth's future, struck down to teach humans their place in the galaxy. Her death had united Earth's nations and peoples like nothing before. In the early days after first contact, countries had competed for alien technology and favorable trade positions with the hegemony. Now former rivals shared research and resources without hesitation. Chinese quantum computing experts collaborated with American weapons specialists. Russian metallurgists worked alongside Brazilian aerospace engineers. The project consumed nearly 30% of Earth's global industrial capacity, all carefully hidden from hegemony observation. The ship taking shape in the lunar cavern incorporated technology the hegemony believed impossible for humans to understand, let alone improve upon. During official exchanges, Earth representatives asked basic questions about star charts and agricultural techniques. Meanwhile, stolen and salvaged pieces of alien tech were reverse-engineered in underground labs. They underestimate human ingenuity. General Kang often told new arrivals to the project, "They think we're just clever animals who stumbled into space. They don't understand what happens when humans face an existential threat." Not everything went smoothly. An explosion during early shield testing killed 12 engineers. A hegemony patrol nearly discovered a resource transport heading to Mars, where secondary weapon systems were being developed. Each setback was overcome with grim determination. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Dr. Kim Jun-ho, a theoretical physicist who had lost his niece in a seemingly unrelated accident aboard a hegemony transport ship, discovered a flaw in alien shield technology. The hegemony used energy fields that dispersed incoming kinetic attacks across space-time, nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. But Kim found the fields couldn't adapt quickly to rapid modulation changes. "It's like hitting the same note. That shatters a wine glass," he explained to the project leaders. "Their shields are tuned to specific frequencies. If we hit them with rapidly changing energy signatures, we create cascade failures." This discovery led to the development of the modulating rail cannon, a weapon that could punch through hegemony defenses when nothing else could. Within months, humanity had advanced weapon technology that should have taken centuries to develop. As the 3rd year of secret development neared its end, the massive ship, now officially named Hana's Vengeance, underwent final system checks. Nearly 600 meters long, its sleek black hull absorbed rather than reflected light. Its interior housed enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble, alongside defensive systems more advanced than anything the hegemony had encountered. Before Admiral Park Ji-ho stood in the observation room overlooking the final assembly area. As Hana, his former mentor during her brief diplomatic career, he had been the natural choice to command Earth's first true warship. "Is it ready?" asked President Chen, who had traveled to the lunar base for this moment. "The engineers say another week for final testing," Park replied, "but yes, she could launch today if necessary." "And the other preparations?" Park nodded. "Diversionary fleet movements are prepared. Stealth systems have been tested against hegemony. Sensor arrays, they won't see us coming until it's too late." President Chen stared through the window at the massive vessel. "I never wanted this," she said quietly. "First contact should have been humanity's greatest moment, a step toward a peaceful, unified future." "They made their choice," Park replied. "They decided we were beneath them, that our lives held no value. Now they'll learn what humanity does when cornered." The president turned to face the assembled project leaders. "In 1 week we launch. The official story will be a test of our new colony ship heading to Europa. By the time the hegemony realizes what's happening, Hana's vengeance will be at their doorstep." Later that night, Admiral Park stood alone on the observation deck. The ship's running lights cast a soft blue glow across the cavern. He removed a small object from his pocket, a simple braided bracelet Hana had made during their diplomatic training sessions. "I promised your mother I'd keep you safe," he whispered. "I failed. But what's coming next? I won't fail at that." Throughout the solar system, humanity held its breath. 3 years of preparation, sacrifice and focus were about to bear fruit. The hegemony had killed a human girl to demonstrate their superiority. Now humanity would show them exactly what that mistake would cost. The launch of Hana's vengeance happened during Earth's night cycle, when the massive lunar hangar doors slid open silently into the vacuum of space. No announcement, no countdown, just the soft blue glow of the ship's engines as it eased out of its birthplace and into the darkness beyond the moon. "Stealth systems active," reported Lieutenant Song from her station on the bridge. "Heat signature, masked radar profile minimized, were effectively invisible to standard detection methods." Admiral Park nodded from the command chair. Around him, 200 of Earth's finest operated a vessel more advanced than anything humanity had built before. The bridge hummed with tension and purpose. They all knew what was at stake. "Begin acceleration once we clear lunar orbit," Park ordered. "Prepare for FTL jump at the designated coordinates." This was the riskiest part of their plan. The faster-than-light drive was humanity's greatest achievement, built from salvaged hegemony tech, but improved upon in ways the aliens never imagined possible. If it worked, they would reach Nexus Prime, the hegemony's central command world, in just under 19 hours. If it failed, they might scatter their atoms across half the galaxy. Back on Earth, the diversionary plan was already in motion. 6 conventional human ships launched from various bases, all transmitting normal commercial and scientific signals. Their trajectories would take them nowhere near hegemony space, but they created enough activity to mask the true mission unfolding. Behind them, "FTL coordinates locked," announced Navigator Lee. "Drive spooling up to capacity." Admiral Park felt the subtle vibration through the deck plates. 3 years of work, countless resources, Earth's future, all riding on this moment. "For Hana," he said quietly, then louder. "Engage FTL." The stars outside the viewports stretched into lines, then vanished altogether as the ship entered the folded space between conventional reality. They were committed now, hurtling toward the heart of an empire that thought humans were barely worth noticing. 18 hours later, alarms blared across Nexus Prime's orbital defense network. Something was approaching, something that had appeared from nowhere at the edge of their system. The hegemony's monitoring station operators were confused. No ship could approach undetected through their sensor nets. "Unidentified vessel entering. Outer defense perimeter," reported a sensor technician to Command Central. "Configuration unknown. Size suggests a mid-class military vessel." High Commander Vox of the Hegemony Defense Force barely looked up from his reports. "Humans," he said dismissively. "Their trade delegation mentioned they were testing a new long-range vessel this cycle." They must have gotten lost. But, sir, their approach vector. Deploy standard intercept squadron, Vox interrupted. Remind these primitives of the proper channels for approaching hegemony space. No need to bother the Council with this. 24 hegemony interceptors launched from the orbital platforms. Each was a marvel of alien engineering, armed with particle beams and protected by energy shields that had never been breached. The pilots were veterans bored with this assignment, but professionally competent. Human vessel, this is Hegemony Defense Squadron Theta. You have entered restricted space without authorization. Power down and prepare for boarding or face immediate destruction. Aboard Hana's Vengeance, Communications Officer Jin displayed the message with a tight smile. They're not even bothering to scan us properly, she said. They've sent a light. Intercept Squadron. Admiral Park nodded slowly. Typical, they're not even taking us seriously. He stood from his chair, straightening his uniform. Weapons status. All systems green, replied Tactical Officer Quan. Modulating rail cannons charged. Point defense grid active. Missile batteries loaded. Shield status. Multiphase shields. At full capacity, reported Defense Systems Operator Yu. Adaptive frequencies running. They won't know what hit them. Park took a deep breath. This was the moment Earth had prepared for, the first true test of whether humans could stand against the technology of a civilization thousands of years more advanced. Target the lead vessel only, he ordered. Single rail cannon burst, maximum dispersion pattern. Let's show them what they're dealing with. The shot fired without sound in the vacuum of space, a blur of hyper-accelerated particles that shifted phase and frequency 50 times per second. The lead hegemony interceptor didn't even attempt evasive maneuvers. Why would it? No human weapon could penetrate their shields. The shot passed through the alien shields as if they weren't there, converting the interceptor into an expanding cloud of superheated gas and debris. Silence fell across both human and hegemony communication channels. Impossible, whispered the hegemony squadron commander. All units, full defensive pattern. This is not a standard human vessel. Too late. Hana's Vengeance surged forward, its engines flaring bright blue against the blackness of space. The remaining interceptors scattered, firing desperately at the human ship. Their particle beams splashed harmlessly against shields, designed specifically to counter them. Point defense grid engaged, called out Tactical Officer Quan, picking off targets 3 through 7. Smaller rail cannons tracked and fired in rapid succession. 3 more hegemony ships vanished in brilliant flashes. The others began retreating, all pretense of superiority abandoned. On Nexus Prime, panic spread through Defense Command. High Commander Vox stared at the tactical display in disbelief as the human vessel tore through his elite squadron. Launch all defense forces, he ordered, voice cracking. Contact the High Council, the humans. They've built a warship, but the reinforcements would arrive too late. Hana's Vengeance moved through the hegemony fleet like a predator among prey. Ships that had dominated space for centuries found themselves outmatched by human ingenuity and determination. The few shots that managed to impact the Stardestroyer merely dissipated across its adaptive shields. Admiral Park stood calmly on his bridge, watching the systematic destruction of the fleet that had believed humans beneath their notice. Open a channel to all hegemony frequencies, he ordered. When the communications officer nodded, he spoke clearly and quietly. This is Admiral Park Ji-ho of Earth vessel Hana's Vengeance. 3 years ago, you killed a human girl to teach us our place in your galaxy. Now we will show you what humanity does to those who harm our own. Within hours, the space around Nexus Prime was filled with debris, the remnants of what had been the hegemony's home defense fleet. Hana's Vengeance hung in orbit above the planet, untouched and unchallenged. Planetary defense grid is targeting us, reported Lieutenant Song. Shall we eliminate those as well? Admiral Park shook his head. No, we've made our point. Prepare a shuttle. It's time I spoke with the Archon Council in person. The Archon Council chamber was the heart of hegemony power, a vast circular hall with soaring crystalline walls that shifted colors with the emotional state of those within. Today those walls pulsed with dark reds and anxious purples as the 7 Archons representing the oldest species in the galaxy faced something none had expected, a human who didn't know his place. Admiral Park strode into the chamber flanked by just 2 guards. He wore a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia, no ceremonial dress or elaborate decorations like the hegemony officials preferred. He carried no visible weapons. He didn't need to. Above the chamber, visible through the transparent ceiling, Hana's vengeance hung in orbit, a silent reminder of what had just happened to the hegemony's supposedly invincible defense fleet. "You come before us after an act of war," spoke Senior. Archon Telv, his translator converting his high-pitched natural language into something human ears could understand. His elongated face showed no emotion, but the tremor in his 6-fingered hands betrayed his agitation. "Explain yourself before we determine punishment." Several junior officials along the chamber walls murmured agreement. They still didn't understand what had happened or who they were dealing with. Park stepped forward, his boots echoing on the polished floor. He surveyed the room slowly, making eye contact with each Archon before speaking. 3 years ago, a 16-year-old human girl named Kim Hana was murdered aboard your diplomatic vessel," he said, his voice calm but carrying to every corner of the chamber. "When we presented evidence that her death was no accident, you dismissed our concerns. You told us the matter was closed." "Old business," interrupted another Archon. "This one, a bulbous creature floating in a suspension field, irrelevant to your unprovoked attack on our defense forces." Park didn't even turn to acknowledge the speaker. "You believed killing a human child would demonstrate your superiority, that we would accept our place as lesser beings in your ordered galaxy." Now he smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You fundamentally misunderstood humanity." He removed a small device from his pocket, a simple black cylinder no larger than his thumb. The security officers at the chamber's edge tensed, hands moving to weapons. "This is a demonstration," Park said, placing the device on the floor before him. He pressed a button on its side. Every light in the chamber flickered and died. The translators fell silent. The suspension field supporting the bulbous Archon failed, sending the alien dropping unceremoniously to the floor with a wet thud. Even the walls stopped their color shifting, turning dull and lifeless. Only Park's voice continued, now projected through a small speaker on his collar. "A localized electromagnetic pulse, modified to affect hegemony technology specifically. Your scientists believed this impossible, that your quantum-shielded systems couldn't be disrupted. Another miscalculation." After 30 seconds of confusion, the device deactivated itself. Systems throughout the chamber gradually returned to life. The injured Archon was helped back into a hastily repaired suspension field, gurgling angrily. "How dare you!" Senior Archon Telv's translator screeched. "Guards, arrest this human!" "I wouldn't," Park said quietly. When the security officers hesitated, he continued. "The device I just demonstrated is installed throughout your planet's major cities. My ship can activate them remotely. That was a 30-second demonstration. The actual devices are programmed. For 30 days. The chamber fell silent. Park nodded to one of his guards, who activated a holographic projector. Above the council table appeared images of 6 more ships identical to Hana's vengeance, each shown in different locations throughout hegemony space. "We built 7 Stardestroyers," Park lied smoothly. "The other 6 are already in position near your core worlds. Each carries enough firepower to reduce a planetary defense system to ash, as you witnessed today. The images were fabricated, of course. Earth had strained its entire industrial capacity to build just 1 ship. But the hegemony had no way to verify this claim, not without advanced scanning technology that would take weeks to deploy." Senior Archon Telv's posture changed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "What do you want, human? Reparations? Territory?" "Justice," Park replied simply. "First, we want the individuals responsible for Hana's death identified and surrendered to Earth authorities for trial." He gestured, and his second guard displayed another hologram, this one showing chemical formulas and biological data. "This is the compound found in Hana's body. It was designed specifically to target human physiology while appearing like atmospheric poisoning. Someone ordered its creation, approved its use, and administered it. We want them all." Junior officials were already frantically checking data terminals, whispering urgently to one another. Someone in the chamber knew exactly who was responsible, Park was certain. Second, Earth demands full voting membership in the Galactic Senate, with all the RC rights and protections afforded to founding species. This caused an uproar among the Archons. Races typically waited centuries, even millennia, before achieving such status. "Impossible," shouted the bulbous Archon from his restored suspension field. "Humans have barely mastered space travel." Park tilted his head slightly. "We mastered enough to destroy your fleet and reach this chamber. Your definition of mastery seems flexible." He continued before further objections could be raised. Third, the hegemony will pay reparations to Hana's family and to Earth for the violation of diplomatic conventions and the subsequent cover-up. "You threaten us for money," sneered a serpentine Archon from the far end of the table. "We don't need your money," Park replied coldly. "The reparations acknowledge wrongdoing. The amount is symbolic, 1 unit of your currency for each human on Earth. A reminder that every human life has value, even to the mighty hegemony." Senior Archon Telv conferred quietly with his colleagues before turning back to Park. "And if we refuse these demands?" Park didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked slowly around the chamber, studying the artifacts and symbols of hegemony power displayed on the walls. Ancient treaties, ceremonial weapons, images of conquered worlds brought under hegemony. Protection. "Your civilization has existed for, what, 20,000 years, he finally said. Impressive. Humans have existed for a fraction of that time, yet in 3 years we developed technology that rendered your defenses obsolete." He turned to face the council directly. "You killed one of our children, thinking we were too weak to respond. Now imagine what we would do if threatened with extinction." The implications hung in the air. The hegemony could eventually marshal enough forces to destroy 1 Stardestroyer, perhaps even 7. But could they stop what would come after? A species that advanced this quickly when provoked? "We will consider your demands," Senior Archon Telv said carefully. Park nodded once. "You have 48 hours. After that, we demonstrate what else humans are capable of." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing, a show of good faith. We know the junior diplomatic attaché who led Hana to that observation deck is in this building. Surrender him immediately, or we activate every EMP device in the capital city." As Park walked out of the chamber, he heard the panicked whispers behind him. They would comply. They had no choice. For the first time in 20,000 years, the galactic hegemony had met a species they couldn't intimidate, couldn't dismiss, and couldn't understand. And it terrified them. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Whispers passed from trading outpost to colony world, from subjugated species to neutral zones. The mighty hegemony had surrendered to human demands. A civilization that had dominated galactic politics for 20,000 years had been forced to negotiate from a position of weakness by newcomers barely a decade into interstellar travel. On the desert world of Clothar, members of the long-oppressed Volsci gathered in underground chambers to watch smuggled recordings of the hegemony defense fleet being systematically destroyed by a single human vessel. "Is it true?" asked one young Volsci, his scales shimmering with excitement. "That they built this weapon to avenge a single death?" The elder nodded slowly. "One girl. Not a queen or president, just an ordinary child. The humans consider that enough reason to challenge the entire hegemony." Similar conversations happened on hundreds of worlds. Species that had lived under hegemony rule for generations suddenly saw possibility, where before there had been only resignation. 6 days after Admiral Park delivered his ultimatum, the Galactic Senate convened an emergency session. For the first time in its history, a new member was admitted without the centuries-long probationary period. Ambassador Kim, mother of the murdered Hana, took her place at Earth's newly installed seat, her face composed but her eyes hard as she faced the representatives of the civilization that had killed her daughter. "We recognize Earth as a full voting member of the Galactic Senate," announced the Senate overseer, a member of one of the few truly neutral species. "All protections and responsibilities thereof are granted, effective immediately." The chamber remained unnaturally quiet. Traditionally, new member admissions were celebrated with elaborate ceremonies and feasting. Today, no one felt like celebrating. The hegemony representatives sat stiffly in their section, their usual arrogance replaced by thinly veiled hostility. Ambassador Kim rose to address the Senate for the first time. "Earth thanks the galactic community for this recognition," she said, her voice steady. "We come seeking peaceful cooperation and mutual advancement, but let our actions of recent days stand as proof. Humanity will never accept being treated as lesser beings. We are young among the stars, but we will not be dismissed." That evening, in a private ceremony closed to media, 3 hegemony officials were surrendered to Earth authorities. The investigation had confirmed what humans suspected all along. Hana's death had been ordered from the highest levels as a lesson in hegemony superiority. The officials were transported to Earth to stand trial under human justice systems. Over the following months, the galactic power structure underwent seismic shifts. Emboldened by Earth's example, other subjugated species began demanding reforms. The Vulci organized system-wide strikes, shutting down vital resource extraction operations until granted self-governance. The aquatic merch refused to continue sharing their unique biotechnology until given voting rights. "The humans have shown us what's possible," became a common refrain among resistance movements. One ship, just one, and they broke 20,000 years of domination. Of course, few knew the truth that Earth had gambled everything on a single vessel and a believable bluff. The other 6 Stardestroyers shown in Admiral Park's holographic display existed only as partially completed frameworks. In Earth's shipyards, it would take years before humanity truly had the fleet they'd claimed to possess. But that truth mattered little in the face of what humans had proven. Determination could overcome technological advantages, courage could defeat complacency, and the desire for justice was a force stronger than any weapon. 1 year after Hana's vengeance appeared above Nexus Prime, the Galactic Senate approved a comprehensive reform package. The hegemony's special voting privileges, which had allowed them to veto any proposal they disliked, were abolished. A new interspecies justice council was established, with representatives from all member worlds, to handle disputes and criminal matters that crossed planetary boundaries. And at the center of the new Senate building, a memorial was unveiled. Unlike the grandiose monuments that dominated hegemony architecture, this was simple, a life-sized statue of a young human girl looking up at the stars with hope and curiosity. At its base, written in the languages of every Senate member species, was an inscription. "The measure of civilization is not its power, but how it treats its most vulnerable. Never again." Back on Earth, life continued. The advanced technology developed for Hana's vengeance gradually filtered into civilian applications, accelerating human development by centuries. Interstellar trade flourished now that the hegemony could no longer impose predatory terms on newcomers. Educational exchanges brought students from across the galaxy to Earth, many drawn by humanity's reputation for innovation and determination. Admiral Park never commanded another vessel. After returning from Nexus Prime, he requested reassignment to Earth's diplomatic corps, where he helped shape humanity's new role in galactic politics. When asked why he'd abandoned his military career at its peak, he would show visitors a simple, braided bracelet he kept on his desk. "I made a promise," was all he would say. 3 years after the confrontation at Nexus Prime, the trial of the hegemony officials concluded. All 3 were found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. In a move that surprised many, Ambassador Kim requested a modification to their sentence. Rather than standard incarceration, the officials would spend their lives teaching at a new interspecies cultural understanding academy, explaining to younger generations exactly how and why the hegemony's arrogance had led to their downfall. "Hana believed in building bridges between cultures," she explained when questioned about her decision. "Even in death she'll continue that work." Throughout the galaxy, the human approach became shorthand for responding to injustice with overwhelming force, followed by measured restraint. Species that had relied solely on technological superiority began investing in understanding different perspectives and values, recognizing that true power came not from weapons, but from wisdom. And whenever a powerful civilization felt tempted to dismiss a seemingly weaker species, someone would inevitably raise a cautionary finger and whisper, "Remember Hanar's vengeance." It was enough.